Hi, I'm Christy, and welcome to Prayerful Flow. To access today's class, I invite you to perhaps practice near either a wall space or a piece of furniture. You can see I have a chair in the background, just something. We're going to be doing balancing, and sometimes just having an assist nearby can help you focus more on other parts of the pose and just trying to avoid wobbling or falling. So just that option. If you don't have that accessible to you where you're practicing, no worries, you don't need it. It's just something to deepen or enhance your practice, but not required in order to access. So to begin class, I invite you to come onto your back into Supta Baddha Konasana, so reclined bound angle pose. So you'll be bringing your soles of your feet together and your knees wide, coming to each side of the mat and laying on your back. So while you make your way there, if you're new to the class, I'll just let you know what to expect. So we'll begin class reading scripture. You'll hear the passage twice, then we'll transition into some movement and flow, and then finish class with the reading one more time and some silence in Shavasana. So coming onto your back in reclined bound angle, I invite you to just begin to draw your awareness to how you feel in your space, how it feels to be lying on your mat, feeling supported by the earth. And begin to focus on your breath. Noticing the length of your inhale and the length of your exhale. Bringing ease and steadiness to your breath. Allowing your breath to flow all the way into your belly, to support your breath with your diaphragm rather than shallow chest breathing. And then as your breath just gets steady, consistent, calming, begin to draw your awareness to God's loving presence. We know that God is in all things, above all things, before all things, but He also doesn't thrust Himself or force a relationship with Him onto us. So we intentionally invite Him into our space to accompany us in prayer and practice. Our reading for this 5th week of Easter comes from John chapter 15. You're going to hear the passage twice. It is a very well-known passage, well-loved passage, and I think it connects amazingly with a yoga practice. So excited to share God's word and share some movement in praise and gratitude and in unity with the Spirit today. So like I said, you're going to hear the passage twice. The first time, I invite you to simply listen. Jesus said to His disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that He does, He prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. Take a long, slow inhale in through your nose. Maybe sigh it out through your mouth, letting go of any tension. If you're in supine bound angle and your knees are wide, maybe take an opportunity to bring some movement, shifting if you need to, or maybe even straightening your legs if you need to. Begin to prepare yourself for the second round of this reading. This time I invite you to notice any word or phrase that catches your attention. And then notice if that word is something that brings you peace or comfort or consolation, or notice if it's a word or phrase or even an image that's challenging you or questioning, or you're finding some kind of resistance around. And if that's the case, I simply invite you to ask God to soften your heart around that, or even ask him for some clarity, because that could certainly be the Holy Spirit at work too. So take a long breath in to prepare for our reading. Exhaling, clearing your mind. We read again. Jesus said to his disciples, I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that he does, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit, because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. People will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want, and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples. Allow any word, phrase, or image that came to you or that is coming to you now to settle, noticing it, just simply observing, not judging, perhaps sealing it in as an intention for your prayer and practice. And then when you're ready, remaining on our backs for a few more moments, begin to draw your knees together, planting your feet on the earth. Extending your left leg long to the sky, maybe pointing and flexing your foot and rotating your ankle. Stretching it out as though you're reaching your foot to place the sole of your foot on the ceiling, and then letting your left leg rest on the ground. Same thing with your right. Extend your right leg long to the sky, maybe point and flex. Rotate your ankle around. Stretch, stretch, stretch your leg towards the ceiling before exhaling and lowering your leg to the earth. Begin to position your arms to whichever way might be calling to you. So you can maybe place your forearms on the mat with your palms to the sky. Maybe it feels good to reach your arms up overhead. Maybe you want to cactus your arms or have them out to a T. Just begin to place them wherever you're feeling drawn to stretch them or move them. And then when you're ready, begin to allow your right leg to just become heavy on the earth, but keeping your leg active by flexing your right foot. So really rooting into the earth with your heel and your calf muscle, the length of your leg, really feeling anchored and strong. And then begin to bring a bend to your left leg, your left knee, like you were in Supta Baddha Konasana, so our bound angle pose. So you're still bringing your knee wide out towards the side of your mat. And then place the sole of your foot, kind of whatever is comfortable for you. So maybe down towards your ankle, maybe to the inside of your calf, or maybe even above your knee. So just as long as your foot is not resting on your knee, just kind of notice what feels like that just right spot. So coming into a reclined tree pose with your arms in the expression that you want, and just enjoying your breath, enjoying this kind of passive stretching while being fully supported on the earth, and feeling that connection and that support by that strong force. So in this case, literally it's, gravity and the earth, but spiritually thinking about that connection to the divine and the strength and support that we have from the divine. So on an inhale, begin to place your sole of your foot on the earth, bringing a bend to your knee. Again, extending your left leg long to the sky before letting it relax onto the earth. Releasing the tension or the action you were holding in your right leg. Maybe shaking out your legs a little bit before bringing that same energy to your left leg. So flexing your left foot, rooting your left heel into the earth, feeling supported by the length of your leg, rooted into the earth. Maybe changing up the expression of your arms. Maybe you're wanting to feel taller, so you're reaching up overhead and lengthening. And then just like we did with our left leg, our right knee comes to a bend, coming out to the side, and notice what you notice on this side. Maybe you are landing your foot on the inside of your thigh. Maybe it feels better to have it on the inside of your ankle. Just notice what you need and what feels different. Noticing where you're rooted and where you feel strong. Noticing where you feel soft. Just appreciating the connection. Maybe even sending some gratitude up to God for being part of the vine. So just noticing in these early movements of practice, things that we take for granted, like gravity, or beginning practice with these slow, subtle movements, just bringing our awareness to how we feel and what we need this morning. So with your inhale, draw your knee up towards the sky, planting the sole of your foot on the earth, bringing your left leg to meet your right, so both knees are bent. Then go ahead and hug knees into chest, maybe even rocking from side to side. And go ahead and relax, release your legs back to the earth, and when you're ready, roll, use the strength of your arm and leg to roll yourself onto your left hip. So stacking right hip over left, and then come onto your left forearm. So we're in this modified forearm side plank, super modified because we're supported on the earth. So I invite you to just whatever you have in you, this early in practice, we're moving slow, we're grounded, we're connected to the earth, but bringing ourselves, using the strength to bring ourselves off the earth in whatever capacity we have. So perhaps just anchoring in with your right foot and lifting, or maybe drawing your right foot in front of your left leg, pressing in, lifting, and then use the pace of your own breath. So your inhale lifts, your exhale lowers. Or vice versa. Whatever's calling to you. Whatever feels right to you. I'm almost always reversing for what feels right. And then if you're not feeling that, just even the simple act of making it more isometric and making it more of a static pose. I'm sure by now you're feeling it in your arm, in your forearm, the strength, and you should feel a stretch along your oblique, so your side abdomen muscles. And then when you're ready, release that, coming back onto the mat, taking a full round of breath, and then rolling over and doing all that on the opposite side. So rather than turning away from the camera, come this direction to face you. So my left hip is stacked over my right. I'm on my forearm. I'm not collapsing into my shoulder, but my shoulder is strong. I have a connection from my elbow to the tips of my fingers, supporting my body with my right arm. And then again, option to root your left foot into the mat and lift, or to do the modified by bending your left knee and lifting. So again, alternating lifting and releasing with your inhale and your exhale. Doing that a few times. Just getting things moving and building a little heat. So sometimes we're a tree flowering and enjoying the fruits, and sometimes we are connected to the vine, but getting pruned of those things we no longer need, or dealing with the tension of doing the right thing in a tough situation. So coming back, releasing that, coming back onto your back, hugging in, knees to chest one more time. This time rocking and rolling, and maybe rolling all the way over, coming onto hands and knees. So bringing some more dynamic movement to our practice. We're coming onto hands and knees, and just begin to take a few rounds of cat and cow. So stretching your low back, your shoulders. So cat pose, our tailbone curls down. We press our shoulders towards the ceiling by rooting our hands into the earth. Cow pose, our belly drops, our heart lifts, our gaze lifts. And maybe you're noticing it feels better to stay longer in one posture than the other, or maybe you really like the fluid movement. Just take what you need in this moment. And then when you're ready, returning to stillness, begin to root into your right hand. So again, extending your left leg back behind you and coming into a modified side plank. So you're stacking your hips again, your left foot a little higher. This chair I have handy is throwing me off in my space on my mat today. So my left foot is extended out. I'm using my knee as a modification, kind of as a kickstand, so you can alternate, kind of play with where you feel most supported and strong. Using your right leg and maintaining that connection to the earth. And remember, we're not collapsing into our shoulder. We should feel a strong upward energy. So rooting our hand in the earth, our arm is long, and then stretching up, extending our left arm to the sky. And then again, play with option 2, depending on how much heat you're looking for in this practice. Maybe you're lifting or playing with lifting your right leg. It's a little early for side plank, so modified side plank is just fine for me. So then when you're ready, when you've had enough fun breathing through that, release your left hand to meet your right, coming back, drawing your left leg back in, coming into hands and knees. Take a round of cat and cow to rinse that out. And then we'll set up to do the same thing on the opposite side. I'm turning for sake of the camera. So go ahead and come into really that strength and rooting on your left hand, extending your right leg out behind you, rooting into your left knee, and again alternating where you want your foot to land to set that anchor or kickstand up for you. Begin to stack your right hips over your left. So again, pivoting your foot so the inside edge of your foot, your arch, is against the mat, and extending your right arm towards the sky. Breathing. And again, the modified version of this is nice, especially when you want to focus on like that upward energy, feeling strong and rooted through your shoulder. Sometimes when we try to wrench ourselves into poses, especially ones that require strength and balance, we over try and end up like collapsing into areas that aren't strong. So this is a great option as you're building stamina or practicing or not practicing, choosing not to practice, coming into a full expression of the pose, because the modified one, you get all the same benefits. So begin to return your right hand to the earth, coming back into a tabletop pose. Take one more rinse of cat and cow to release that pose. And then extend your hands forward, one handprint, curl your toes, lift your feet. Let's come into downward facing dog. So from downward facing dog, pressing into all 10 fingers, maybe shaking your head out yes and no, bending one leg and straightening the other. Breathing. Look up between your hands, walk your feet towards your hands, coming into a forward bend. Breathing here, inhaling to lift halfway. Spine is long, your gaze is down. Exhale to release. Inhale, root to rise, so rooting your feet into the earth, extending your arms to the sky as you stand tall, and then exhaling, letting your hands land at heart center. So coming into a mountain pose. So from here, I invite you to perhaps go near your wall or piece of furniture if you need an assist. We're going to just begin to play with balance now that we're in this standing pose. So before we get into other flow and movement, I just invite you to notice that same thing where that we talked about, that upward energy in side plank, rooting into our shoulder and feeling that upward energy, we tend to collapse into our legs and our hips when we go into balancing poses. So I just want to first let you experience, draw your awareness for how you tend to balance. So first, just stepping the wrong way. So if you tend to be a bit like a hip thruster or sass one hip to the side when you're standing, or you tend to carry your weight onto one foot, just kind of notice how it feels in the non-example. So this would be a sensation of really putting your weight into one side and putting a lot into your hip joint. So now that you know what that feels like, I invite you to notice the alternate sensation of drawing energy upward. And this is where the piece of furniture or the wall might help you, so that you're not focusing on, the goal isn't necessarily to balance, but to feel strong in the pose while you're balancing. So I invite you to root into your left foot. So really feel strong, feel all four corners of your foot rooted into the mat. So when we say that, feeling rooted into the heel, across your foot from left to right, and also into the big toe joint and across the front of your foot, across your toes. Begin to bring a bend to your right knee, coming up onto tiptoes. And notice if you tended, when you brought your knee up, if you tended to kind of collapse your weight into your hip joint. And if that's the case, again, soften by placing your right hand on a wall or the chair or a piece of furniture, and see if you can really lift out of your hip and really feel like you're drawing energy up your leg. So rooted into the earth, but drawing energy up. And then begin to maybe lift your toe, or coming into a small version of tree by bringing a bend to your knee, extending your right knee out towards the side, and your foot is anchored to your left ankle. So notice that difference. Sometimes when we say get into a tree pose, there's this pressure to anchor ourselves into this, or wrench ourselves into this like tall expression of the pose. And when we do that, we tend to lose the integrity of that rooting energy or that upward energy and that strength. So in the smallest version of a pose, we can really be mindful of the subtle movements and the shifts, because we're not focusing on balancing or not falling down or anything like that. So when you're ready, shake that all out and let's set up for that same thing on the opposite side. So this time you're rooting into your right foot. And again, anchoring into your foot, drawing that energy up, bringing a bend to your left knee, coming onto tiptoes. Also notice when you draw that energy upward, do you stop breathing? Are you like drawing it up and then I forget to breathe? So this time, focusing on that strength, that space in your hip, balancing, but also breathing. So it can be annoying to put all these little small movements together. Sometimes you just want to get into your practice and move and flow. But just like day-to-day life and our relationship with God, sometimes we have to slow things down, focus on small details, quiet ourselves in order to feel the presence and the connection and hear what God is trying to say to us. So when you're ready, go ahead and release your small balancing pose. Shake out your legs, returning to our mountain pose, inhaling your arms up to the sky. Let's exhale and fold all the way through heart center, planting our hands to the mat, stepping back to plank. Pausing here in plank or modified plank by releasing your knees. Engaging your core, building a little heat. This time, releasing your knees if you haven't already, coming all the way down onto your belly and pausing here for a moment. Keeping your hands, I invite you to extend your right hand out to the side. Your left arm remains by your rib cage. Nope, let's reverse that. Left arm extends out, right hand is by your rib cage, your right elbow is bent. And then when you're ready, begin to use your left arm to press yourself up onto your side, stacking your hips, coming back into our forearm plank. So you're coming onto your elbow, forearm side plank. So coming onto your elbow, stacking your hips, coming onto, making sure our shoulder, again, we're not dumping into our shoulder, but we're rooting into our elbow, extending energy upward. And again, this time seeing if you can come all the way up rather than pulsing down. And then letting that go. Coming back onto your belly. Breathing here. And then doing all of that to the opposite side. So again, changing the direction of the camera. So this time we're stacking our right hips onto our left, pressing ourselves up, coming onto our left forearm. And then when you're ready, pressing yourself up to hold, side forearm plank. Or again, option to stay lowered if that was just the right stretch for you. It can be challenging just to hold this and practice and strengthen your arm to support you in a forearm plank. So just taking a moment to hold whichever version of forearm side plank is right for you. And then when you're ready, release that, coming all the way back down onto your belly, bringing your hands to each side of your rib cage. Your elbows are tucked into your sides, coming up for the back bend of your choice, lowering, and then we'll meet in a downward facing dog. So checking in downward facing dog, noticing what you notice, what has shifted for you since we've begun practicing. Take a long deep breath in through your nose, sigh it out through your mouth. Look between your hands, hop or step between your hands, coming into a forward fold. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale, forward fold. Inhale, rise to stand. Extending your arms to the sky. Exhaling, lowering to heart center. Again, option to come near your chair or wall or furniture for an assist. This time we're going to root into our right foot. Bring a bend to your left knee and come into your tree pose. So I'm going to turn just for a moment. So again, coming into your version of tree, maybe that's your sole of your foot to your calf or to your ankle or to the inside of your thigh. I don't really prefer that sensation, and when I'm really trying to balance or do something else, I feel like really distracted by the pressure I put on my thigh. So just notice what you need out of your tree pose. And then when you're ready, I invite you to begin to extend your arms to the sky. And then the goal would be to become a tree in the wind or the breeze. So maybe your inhale, you're bending to the side. Your exhale comes back to center. Inhaling to the side, or exhaling to the side, inhaling back to center. Playing with your breath, playing with balance. And then when you're ready, lowering your hands to heart center, bringing your knee out in front of you, releasing your leg, left foot meets right. Go ahead and shake that out. And let's set up for the opposite side. So rooting into your left foot, bring a bend to your right knee, come onto your right tiptoes, and then place the sole of your foot where you would like it for tree pose on this side. And again, being mindful of that draw upward, rooted into the earth, upward energy, so we're not collapsing into our hip. Notice if also your right knee or your knee is tracking forward and you're inviting it to simply come out to the side. So coming out towards the side of your mat rather than the front of your mat. And then when you're ready, inhale your arms to the sky. Noticing any wobbling, especially as you begin to become that tree in the breeze. Getting a side body stretch. Moving with your inhale and your exhale. Noticing my cues for inhaling and exhaling are out of balance today while I'm focusing on these balancing poses in our sequence. So it's kind of ironic. You have to laugh at yourself, right? So then when you're ready, lowering your hands back to heart center, drawing your knee out in front of you, releasing your right foot to meet your left, shaking that all out. Inhale to sweep your arms to the sky. Exhale, fold through heart center. Release your hands to the mat. Step back to a plank pose. Pausing here, breathing. I invite you to lower your left knee to the earth, coming back, setting up for side plank. So stacking your hips, opening your arm, your right arm to the sky, breathing. Maybe you can look into the sky. Inhale long. Exhale, lower right hand to meet your left. Coming back into our plank pose. And again, let's do that to the opposite side. So lowering your right knee for a modified plank, pivoting your left foot so your arch, your inner arch is on the mat, extending your left arm to the sky. And again, option to play with coming off of your right leg, taking what you need out of your side plank pose this morning. And then when you're ready, inhale long, stretch your left arm, exhale, lower, returning your left arm to the earth, returning back to a full plank pose or modified plank pose before lowering all the way to the earth, taking the back bend of your choice, and then we'll meet in a downward facing dog. From downward facing dog, look between your hands, hop or step your hands forward for a forward fold. Inhale to lift halfway. Exhale, release to forward fold. Inhale, rise to stand. Exhale, lower your hands to heart center. This time, Still coming back, still remaining connected to the vine, variations of tree pose. So rooting into your right foot, find your tree pose, engaging your core, drawing energy upward from the earth. Inhale your arms to the sky. With your exhale, release to a gentle twist. So your heart moves towards your knee that's extended. Your right hand lands on your left leg and your left arm reaches out behind you. So a twisted tree. Balancing, breathing, noticing how the twisted posture may or may not challenge your balance. Notice if you stopped breathing. Inhale your arms back to the sky, bringing your chest to center. Draw your left knee forward. Release your left foot to the earth. Exhale your hands to heart center. Shake out any tension from your legs. And let's begin to set all that up on the opposite side. So rooting into your left foot. Finding your version of tree that you need. Inhaling your arms to the sky. Exhaling to the twist. So left hand lowers to left thigh, left hip maybe, or right hip, right thigh. Really, you can see why I needed a balancing practice today. So your heart is tracking towards your right knee. Inhale, extend your arms to the sky. Draw your heart back to center. Draw your right knee to center. Exhale, releasing your foot to the earth, releasing your hands to heart center. Pausing here for a moment. Maybe drawing your eyes closed or shifting your gaze down to something that's not moving. And just bringing to mind your word, phrase, or image that came to you, your intention for class. Maybe you forgot it. Maybe you forgot that we were even reading because of all this balancing we've been doing and we were focusing on. But just knowing that you always have the opportunity to go back to the word, slow things down, go back to the vine, go back to what you were rooted in. And remembering sometimes to just simply breathe. So if your eyes are closed, go ahead and blink them open. Inhale your arms to the sky. Exhale, fold through heart center, releasing your hands to the earth, stepping back to a plank or modified plank. And this time just taking the flow through of your choice or just meeting us in downward facing dog. Whatever is calling to you in this moment, taking what you need. So from downward dog, release your knees to the earth and slowly come all the way down onto your belly. Bringing your forehead to the mat, pausing here for a moment, and then begin to stack your hips again. So pressing yourself up to stacked hips and that modified forearm plank. So coming onto your left forearm and anchoring your elbow, your forearm, the length of your hand into the mat. So So you should feel, again, this stretch down your obliques and your side body. And then finally coming into our final version of tree pose. So flex your bottom leg, so your left foot, and then begin to bring a bend to your right knee. So again, being mindful, does it feel better to hold your leg at your ankle, at your side of your calf, or on your inner thigh? Again, without the pressure of gravity, this feels like a better option for me. For whatever reason, I just prefer this sensation when I'm supported by the earth. So again, the connection to the vine. So just play with whatever you prefer. Again, still keeping the bottom leg active by flexing your foot. Again, being mindful of keeping yourself rooted into your forearm. And then option, maybe you want to try the full expression by lifting and then coming into the tree. Option is yours. Take what you need. And then to release the pose, I invite you to simply come onto your belly, extend your arms long out in front of you or to your sides. Maybe shake your arms out or roll your arms one way then the other. Something to release the tension from the pose. And then of course, let's set up for the opposite side. So stacking your hips, coming onto your right forearm, noticing if this side feels any different, either on your arm or when you stack your hips. And then option to build your tree pose. Maybe even extending your arms or stretching it overhead. Breathing. Keeping your right foot active. I say that because I myself needed the prompt. And then when you're ready, extend your right leg long, stacking. Right foot meets left foot, rolling onto your belly. Pausing here, again, maybe rolling your arms back and forth or stretching out overhead. And then simply coming back onto your back. So returning in our practice where we began, I invite you to bring a bend to your knees, placing the soles of your feet on the mat. Setting up for supine bound angle. Once again, bringing the soles of your feet together, your knees wide. Maybe placing one hand on your belly, one hand on your heart. Maybe reaching your arms up overhead. Just connecting to your breath. Maybe connecting to your intention. If there's one more pose you would like to take to complete your practice, whether it's a bridge pose or a happy baby or a spinal twist on both sides, take whatever option you need to bring completeness to your practice. You can feel free to stay right here in supine bound angle, or you can begin setting up for our final resting pose by extending your legs long, extending your arms long palms facing up to the sky. I'm going to close practice with our reading one more time before spending a few moments in silence in Shavasana. So just settling into your breath, allowing yourself to feel at ease and supported on the mat. Letting your breath be easy and light. Jesus said to his disciples, "I am the true vine, and my Father is the vine grower. He takes away every branch in me that does not bear fruit, and every one that does, he prunes so that it bears more fruit. You are already pruned because of the word that I spoke to you. Remain in me as I remain in you. Just as a branch cannot bear fruit on its own unless it remains on the vine, so neither can you unless you remain in me. I am the vine, you are the branches. Whoever remains in me and I in him will bear much fruit. Because without me you can do nothing. Anyone who does not remain in me will be thrown out like a branch and wither. And people will gather them and throw them into a fire, and they will be burned. If you remain in me and my words remain in you, ask for whatever you want and it will be done for you. By this is my Father glorified, that you bear much fruit and become my disciples." Allow a few more moments in silence and God's loving presence. Feel free to extend your Shavasana by pausing the video here. Bring your awareness back to your breath. Taking a slow inhale in, sighing out your exhale. Begin making small movements. Maybe taking a full body stretch or hugging your knees into your chest, or just remaining in the stillness. When you're ready, curl onto whichever side is calling to you, savoring a few more moments of God's loving embrace in this prayer and in this practice. And when you're ready, begin to draw yourself back up to a seated position on the mat, bringing your hands to heart center. Your eyes can be closed or your gaze can be down. We bring our hands to our forehead. May God's word be on our mind. We lower our hands to our lips. May God's word be on our lips. And we return our hands to heart center. May God's word be in our hearts. May you be connected to the vine of God's love and love for self and love for others. Our practice and our prayer for now are complete as we bow to our God and one another and say, Namaste.